Let's take a look at one of my past videos for a minute. I'm comparing Windows 7 Professional versus Windows 10 Professional. But if I had to choose one I like better, I would choose Windows 10. Windows 10. So I noticed a lot of you guys in that video are mad at me because I said Windows 10 is better than Windows 7. And, you know, maybe it might not be, but that was my opinion. So, yeah, just a little disclaimer, that was my opinion. Hello guys, Bingocat here, and I'm back today with another operating systems comparison video. So today I'm going to be comparing Windows 8.1 Professional 64-bit versus Windows 10 Professional 64-bit. Now, the first thing I want to mention about both operating systems is that the minimum specifications to run both operating systems are the exact same. You need a 1 GHz or faster processor, 1 GB of RAM for the 32-bit operating system, or 2 GB of RAM for a 64-bit operating system. You need at least 16 GB of free storage space on your computer. You need a Microsoft DirectX 9 graphics device with something called a WDDM driver, which, you know, if you've had a computer since about 2005, there's a pretty good chance that you will have the correct graphics device. So yeah, Windows 8.1 Professional was released near the end of 2013. Windows 10 Professional was released in mid-2013, and I am actually running the Windows 10 Anniversary Update Edition of Windows 10, so this was technically released in mid-2016. Now, let's go ahead and turn both operating systems on. As you guys notice, I gave them pretty much the exact same specifications. Windows 8.1 has slightly higher hard disk space, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, let's go ahead and turn both virtual machines on. Now, the last time I checked, both operating systems use the exact same kind of boot technology. They use something called, it's either called fast boot or quick boot. And basically what this is supposed to do is make the operating system boot faster, hence the name. As you guys can see, both operating systems pretty much took the exact same time to boot up. I did start up Windows 8.1 Professional first, that's why I booted up faster. But yeah, let's go ahead and log in. Windows 8 and 8.1 introduced a lock screen to the operating system, which a lot of Windows 7 and prior users didn't really like because they don't really see the point of a lock screen. Because in Windows 7, it would immediately show the actual login screen, right? And so there has actually been a way to turn this off in Windows 8.1 and in the original builds of Windows 10, but last time I checked, Microsoft actually removed the feature to turn off the lock screen in Windows 10 unless you pony up for that Enterprise edition. But if I'm wrong, guys, just go ahead and correct me in the comments, because I'll admit I do not know everything there is to know about Windows, even though I like to think I know a lot about Windows. So yeah, let's go ahead and log into both operating systems. So when you log into both operating systems, I mean, on the desktop, they look pretty similar. I mean, although you could argue that Windows 95 looked pretty similar to the Windows 10 desktop, right? I mean, you have your taskbar at the bottom of the screen, your recycling bin in the top left corner of the screen. You know, basically, everything is decent, everything is familiar. So yeah, Windows 8 and 8.1 is probably most famous for something called its Start screen, which is what Microsoft used in place of the traditional Start menu, which Windows 10, believe it or not, actually has, right? So yeah, a lot of people didn't like the Start screen, and Windows 8, it booted to the Start screen by default. If you wanted to access a desktop, you had to click this little teeny tiny icon down here, and voila, you got your familiar desktop. But the reason Windows 8 is designed like this, and Windows 8.1 is more or less designed like this, is Microsoft basically wants you to use your computer like a tablet. Microsoft saw the success that first the iPhone and then the iPad had, and they wanted to build off of this success because PCs, since about the early 90s, the way you've interacted with your PCs hasn't really changed at all. You still used your keyboard and mouse to interact with your PC. You still had a monitor in front of you. You usually had your PC tower or whatever, or It can even be an all-in-one PC, whatever, right? The way you've interacted with your PC really has not changed that much, in my personal opinion, since the early 90s. Microsoft wanted to change that. They designed Windows 8 and the start screen to be touch-friendly in order to entice PC manufacturers and its users to start using Windows as more of a touchscreen-based operating system. But even though this doesn't sound like a bad idea at the beginning, but arguably the main reason most people use computers is because it's not a tablet to begin with, right? I mean, have you ever sat down at your computer and thought, I know what I want to do with my computer. I want it to all of a sudden turn into a tablet. I all of a sudden want it to be exactly like my iPad. For the most part, I've never really thought of that. Sure, there's been features from like iOS and Android that I've wanted on my computer, but for it to become a touchscreen, tablet-based operating system was never one of them. So sales of the original Windows 8 operating system weren't exactly the best. I mean, sure, it did sell, and PC manufacturers did include Windows 8 on their computers, but there were a lot of complaints on how to use this. And I thought of this before Windows 8 even came out, that most users wouldn't like this change. It's not friendly, it's not intuitive, and basically, it just made Windows on a traditional PC a mess. Well, Microsoft actually heard the concerns, right? And so they attempted to quote-unquote fix it in Windows 8.1 by, instead of letting you use a start screen, they let you boot to the desktop by default, even though that option was hidden away in a submenu or two. I think it was actually in this submenu, the navigation menu. When I sign in or close, all apps on a screen go to the desktop instead of start. And in later builds of Windows 8.1, you see the other problem with the way Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 was designed was that the apps that were included in Windows 8's new App Store, they were pretty hard to close. Like in the original builds of Windows 8 and 8.1, I sort of explained this in my other video. If you wanted to quote-unquote close an app, you either had to invoke something called the charms bar and go back to the start screen, or you had to somehow drag your app out of the way with your mouse, and honestly, it was just awkward. And the other downside to that is that apps could only be full screen. If you wanted to, drag it around in a window or something like that so you can multitask, that was impossible without a third-party program. Now, Microsoft, they fixed some of the usability concerns in Windows 8.1 by, adding a nice little close button where you can close the apps. But it wasn't until Windows 10 did they actually fix the problem. Now, you can actually drag around apps in a window, and you can actually multitask using Windows apps. I guess I'm trying to say is the main reason Windows 10 was created and Windows 8.1 was created was to fix the quirks that Windows 8 introduced to the Windows world. So yeah, on another point, some people, I noticed in my Windows 10 versus Windows 7 video, some people asked why they'd want to use the App Store, the Windows Store on Windows at all, right? They argue that PCs don't really need an app store. Like, why would you want to use apps on your PCs? Apps are for tablets, apps are for phones, apps are just dumbed down versions of the full scale programs that you can get on Windows. Like, for example, an Adobe app on your iPhone is, pretty dumb compared to, full-blown Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Acrobat or whatever on your PC, right? I, on the other hand, ask why wouldn't you want an App Store on Windows? The App Store on Windows, believe it or not, it was not designed to quote-unquote dumb down the programs on your PC, right? The App Store was designed for ease of use and simplicity and ease of updates. For example, Windows traditionally, you either had to get software on a CD or you had to go on the internet to some sketchy download site and download a program to your PC, right? And that is one of the top reasons why malware even exists on Windows, is because people download so much junk from the internet that may or may not be, an actual useful program for your PC. The Windows Store attempts to fix this by having a place where developers can submit apps to be approved by Microsoft, and the number one advantage to using the Windows Store, like in Windows 10 here, is that there's pretty much a guarantee you will not get malware by downloading any of these apps. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying the guarantee that you won't get any malware by downloading these apps is pretty high. So yeah, another problem with traditional Windows programs is that they are a pain to update. Now, a lot of programs come with built-in updaters, but those typically run in the background and suck up system resources. And then the programs that do not come with a built-in updater, you have to manually check for updates, and sometimes when you download the updates, they run into problems installing in whatever, right? Well, the advantage with the Windows 10 App Store is that all these apps will update automatically in the background, only using the Windows App Store process, and it just makes life easier for the end user. Everything stays up to date. You don't have to improve of anything typically. It's just easier and it just works. So yeah, moving back to comparisons of both of the operating systems, Windows 8.1, if you want to do internet browsing, comes with Internet Explorer. Windows 10 comes with the new Microsoft Edge, and it also actually does come with Internet Explorer, but it's hidden away, and new feature updates for Internet Explorer are minimal to non-existent. Now, some people didn't like in my Windows 10 versus Windows 7 video that I said that Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge are pretty decent browsers. Just a little disclaimer, guys. I use Google Chrome as my main web browser, and when Google Chrome doesn't work for whatever reason, I fire up Firefox and just use that, right? That does not mean that Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge are bad web browsers, all right? Now, the reason people probably practically dissed me when I said Internet Explorer is a bad web browser is because all they know is something like Internet Explorer 6 or Internet Explorer 8, okay? Those are bad web browsers. They don't really follow web browsing and web developer standards. Chances are the programs will, unfortunately, be buggy or whatever. But Internet Explorer 11, it's a much better web browser than Internet Explorer 6 through 8, okay? Internet Explorer 11, for the most part, I'm no web developer, all right? But for the most part, as far as I can tell, it follows modern web browsing standards a lot better than Internet Explorer 6 through 8 did, okay? And not only that, the days of Internet Explorer being slow, I mean, they're basically dead. Internet Explorer is pretty much as fast as, Google Chrome, Firefox. The average user really will not notice a speed difference between almost any modern web browser, all right? Now, the reason I do not know why some people disliked I said Edge was a good browser, because in my opinion, Edge is a decent browser. Edge, unlike Internet Explorer, pretty much completely follows modern web standards. It comes with easy to download and install extensions. It looks modern. It looks great. It functions great. Like, when you think about it, what is there to dislike about Edge? Now, I'll admit, I still use Google Chrome over Microsoft Edge because there isn't a Microsoft Edge for Android or Mac, and I can't easily sync all my bookmarks and browsing history. But Edge is seriously not a bad web browser, alright? Now, I know some people are going to immediately dislike my video and go, OMG, you said Edge and Internet Explorer are good web browsers. I'm going to hate you for life. Well, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But I'm just saying that the hate surrounding Edge and Internet Explorer, like the modern versions, Not like the 2001 version of Internet Explorer, not the 2009 version, but the modern versions of Internet Explorer, and for that matter, Microsoft Edge. It's unwarranted, basically. So yeah, other features of the operating system, once again, under the hood, Windows 10 and Windows 8.1 pretty much function the exact same as each other. Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 both have two places you can control your settings. Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 both have the traditional control panel, and Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 both have something called the Settings app. And I've mentioned this in pretty much any and all of my past videos where I've had Windows 8 or Windows 10 on there. I really do not like that approach. I think it makes it confusing for the end user, for administrators, basically for everyone. I understand that Microsoft is trying to migrate most or all Windows settings to the Settings app, but what they should have done instead of migrate it slowly is that they should have migrated it basically all at once. Like when Windows 10 was released, all the settings should have already been there in the Settings app. Like the migration from the control panel to the Settings app has been too slow and, in my opinion, unnecessarily confusing. Now, I have heard stuff that Microsoft doesn't really have a testing division anymore, and that's probably part of the reason why there's both the Settings app and a control panel. And honestly, I think that's kind of stupid. The end user should not be test subjects, all right? The end user should not be guinea pigs. In my opinion, Microsoft should have a dedicated testing department because, in my opinion, the end users aren't the product, okay? Windows is a product. The end user should never be the product. But that is just totally my opinion. You guys can have your own opinions. I'm sorry if I accidentally offend anyone in this video. The entire goal behind this video is not to offend anyone. It's just to compare Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 and show you some of the features of both, okay? Now, Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 both come with their own built-in antivirus called Windows Defender, and they function pretty much the exact same on both operating systems. Windows 10 includes a little update where even if you use a different antivirus, this can still run in the background. And you can also turn on cloud protection and automatic sample submissions. But other than that, both function pretty much the exact same on both operating systems. Now, Windows 8 includes the icons that were pretty much present in Windows Vista. Like, this is the old recycling bin icon. Windows 10 finally redesigned the icons to be the look different. Some people might argue that this looks worse than the ones in Windows 8 and Windows 7 and Windows Vista. I, on the other hand, don't really have an opinion on that. I think they're just icons, but besides that point, Windows 8 also introduced a redesigned File Explorer, and Windows 10 sort of just took the changes that Windows 8 made and made and tried to improve on it. And as a result, File Explorer and Windows 8 and 8.1 and Windows 10, in my opinion, they function a lot better than the File Explorers in the past. If you were to take the Windows XP File Explorer and compare it to the Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 File Explorer, I mean, it seems clunky and ancient. You can't even do simple stuff like searching your PC nearly as easily as you can in the Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 File Explorer, okay? Other than that, both operating systems function the exact same. Windows 10 does include the new and improved Cortana voice search, which a lot of people on the internet don't really like or use. I'll admit, I personally don't really use Cortana, but Cortana is actually pretty useful because Cortana is just like Siri or Google now, okay? It's just your own virtual assistant, basically. Except now, starting with Windows 10, virtual assistants are now on your traditional PC instead of being just tethered to your phone or tablet, okay? And Cortana, she's actually pretty useful. I mean, she can do basic things like play songs, search the internet for stuff, act as a calculator, stuff like that. But once again, I really don't use Cortana that much. But I'll admit Cortana is not a bad piece of software. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the privacy and spying concerns that Windows 10 has generated among a lot of people. And, well, Windows 8 really is not that different, guys. Windows 10, a lot of the spyware stuff can be turned off. Like, for example, typing data that Microsoft might collect from you by default, believe it or not, can be turned off. And there was an update that came down to Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 that pretty much turned on telemetry by default. You can uninstall those updates, but I just want to point out that for anyone who says that Windows 7 and Windows 8 and 8.1 don't spy on you by default, they do. Okay? Not that much different from the way Windows 10 spies on you by default. But once again, telemetry and both operating systems, both Windows 8.1 and Windows 10, and Windows 7 for that matter, can be turned off. And I will leave links down below in the description telling you how to turn off tracking and telemetry for both operating systems. Okay? So, which one would I recommend using at the end of the day? Windows 8.1 or Windows 10? Once again, I might make some people mad by saying this, but I don't have any reasons to recommend using Windows 8.1 at all, okay? Windows 10 is better in every single way, every way. It has a better web browser, better, less confusing interface. It has Cortana. I mean, once again, I don't use Cortana, but it's still there if you want to use it. Apps can do simple things like actually run in a window instead of full screen mode. It feels more desktop friendly, like it feels more keyboard and mouse friendly. Basically, I don't see any reason to use Windows 8.1 over Windows 10, okay? So for a lot of you, if you want to stay on Windows 8.1 because you're concerned about like the spying concerns of Windows 10 or that Windows 10 won't run well, I'm just saying that Windows 7 has a completely better user interface than Windows 8.1, in my opinion, okay? So, if you want to run an operating system that's not Windows 10 because you're concerned, over a lot of the, quirky features of Windows 10, Windows 7 is there for you. But if you're already on Windows 8.1, I see no reason not to run Windows 10, unless you don't want to buy a license for Windows 10. That's basically the only reason I can think of why you wouldn't want to run Windows 10. So, that is the end of my operating systems comparison video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, these videos are not meant to offend anyone, okay? These videos are just, for the most part, a fair comparison of both operating systems. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye.